From the far reaches of space to the darkest places on Earth, join us as we explore the haunted, the cryptid, the creepy, and more. Exposing Reality Radio presents the Spectral Wolfpack Show, your paranormal nightmare, with your host, Alexander Bobolinsky.
What is up, Wolfpack? I'm excited for the show tonight. Let me tell you guys about a little bit about this past weekend because it was pretty funny. We had the Alabama Paranormal and Bigfoot Conference hosted by Abnormal Alabama. And of course, I worked so hard on my presentation. You guys know that. I kept posting about it. I was very nervous. I think I worked myself up into actually deleting the video and audio off my presentation with my mind or something. Because I get up there to do my presentation and it just didn't work. But luckily, I was able to pull up YouTube and I kind of saved myself there by being able to pull that up and still show some of the clips that I wanted to share. Unfortunately, I didn't get to show a lot that I did want to share, though. But it still went fine. Everyone else did an amazing job. It was a really fun event. We had a big turnout. I think there was like 150 people there. So it was a really good time. We're going to be doing another one, I think, either in September or November. So be on the lookout for that. I was excited to meet some awesome people there as well. Let's see. Coming up in the future, we got the Madhouse premiere in April, and we can actually announce now that it will be on VidiSpace, which is Nick Groff and Elizabeth Saint's little network there. So it will be on that, which is going to be awesome. And on Amazon and a few other places as well. So anyway, tonight we got my good friend, Ian Schwartz. He was born September 30th, 1978, and born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. He works for an at-home company selling cruises. But over the years, he has had many encounters with the paranormal. He's also into a lot of theories on the Anunnaki, Bigfoot, UFOs, Xenos encounters, and other strange and odd things, creatures, and happenings on our Earth and in our universe. So give me one sec here, and I will bring Ian right in. Ian, what's up, man?
How you doing?
Doing good, man. I'm excited to have you on here tonight and have a little chat.
Yeah, man, it's good to be here. Anytime that you ever do anything, man, you know I'm down for it. Anytime. So Wolfpack, bro. Always.
I appreciate it, man. And I know we've had a lot of like late night talks on the phone and everything, like about some of this stuff, and just we've gotten pretty deep before. So I figured, like, you know, we wanted to do this show, have a show where we just kind of talk and see where it leads. So I'm excited.
Oh yeah, me too. Always. Anytime a conversation comes up with you, we know where it's gonna be endless, honestly, until it's either one of us has to go at that point. It's always like that, friend. It's always like that, my man.
Well, now we got. Oh wait, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm excited for that Madhouse documentary. By the way, you know, so I've been keeping tabs on that when you've been posting it. So very excited about that.
Thank you, man. We're excited to share it. I've been seeing some of the. I haven't, you know, it's not completed yet, of course, but I've been seeing clips from it, and I'm excited to for everyone to see everything that happened while we were there. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say any of the clips that you may have posted online, I've purposely avoided because I want no spoilers.
Yeah.
I just want to be totally surprised when I buy it and watch it.
I understand, man. That's kind of how I want it to be too. I kind of want it to just be done so I can just see the whole thing as a whole and be blown away. Because Keith is editing it and he's a beast.
Oh man!
So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be it's gonna be more of a film as opposed to just a YouTube video or anything. So it's gonna be really, really well produced and but it's also gonna focus on the investigation aspects of those 2 days we were there rather than like the history and things like that. It goes into that a little bit, but I won't spoil any more.
Well, thank you. I'd like to try when it comes out.
So I want to know, tell us a little bit about, like, your paranormal experiences, you know, growing up, or did you have many when you were younger?
Not many when I was younger. I used to have these weird dreams with some people that thought they were, and I would be able to dream about things, and then like weeks later, it would come to pass. And I didn't, you know, as a child, I didn't think much of it. It didn't happen a lot. It happened here and there, but it was things that I'd see in my dreams, and then watch the news and see, or go somewhere and see that it happened.
Yeah.
At that point in time. But speaking of the paranormal, that didn't really start until about, let's see, I'm 40 now. Probably I was about 12.
Wow.
Because, you know, a lot of people have paranormal experiences when they're children and outgrow it, but mine started when I was about 12. The first time I actually had my first real memorized experience that I couldn't debunk in any way was when my father passed away. And it's the day after he passed away, the next morning I woke up at 6 o'clock and really saw him like he was really just standing there next to my bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, "Hey, Dad," and rolled back over, went back to sleep, woke back up at 7 o'clock in the morning for school and realized, hey, I know what I saw. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah, it was one of those. And then as growing up, my brother and I, my mom, after she passed away, we used to live in this duplex. We used to, of course, we had animals in the house, had dogs and a few cats. And the cats would sleep in their room. And we used to have this small hallway. We used to keep a dim light on the end, and you could always see what looked to be like footsteps. It's a shadow of somebody walking in a hallway. Things of that nature. Strange noises occasionally here and there. Whispers here and there. You know, the cats never acted funny or anything like that. The pets never had any problems. So never really thought anything about it. The second experience I could ever say that really scared me was the fact that I was probably about 19 years old, and I was sitting in my living room talking to this girl on the phone. You know when you're young, a lot of times you kind of boost yourself a little bit, say things kind of like, "Hey, I can do this, I can do that." Well, I was doing that, and the bottle cap flew across the room, right off the fireplace mantle.
Wow.
I mean, it was like a poltergeist moment.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. At that moment in time, I didn't feel big and bad. I ran straight upstairs.
I understand. I mean, poltergeist activity is pretty rare, too. Like, you know, we see it in the movies and everything, but it does happen to people, and we've actually had it happen here recently where something flew off. I actually was walking by the other day and a fork just like flew off the counter, and I couldn't tell if I was like, did I bump that or what? I was pretty far away from the counter, and even like I was actually at my dad's, and even he was kind of like, he's like, it's all those spirits you're bringing around. So that happened.
Yeah.
So, did you tell the girl on the phone? Did you tell her what happened, or did you try to remain cool and brave?
Oh, I told her right off the bat. I was on the phone. I was like, holy shit, and ran straight upstairs. She's like, what's wrong? I was like, oh, kept this straight off the mantle.
Yeah.
And she was like, are you serious? I was like, dead serious.
Man.
So, yeah, that was a scary moment in my life. Because, I mean, other than that, that's probably the scariest thing I've ever had happen to me. Really.
Well, I know we've talked about some pretty intense things, dealing with it was at that one house you were telling me about with a specific demon. I don't know how much I want to go into it if you want to. That's
no problem. It's just when I was living at the time I had lived in a trailer, and at the time I was with a bunch of people. We were all roommates, and they all moved out. It was just me left and whatnot. And the house seemed pretty okay. It was okay until, come around Hanukkah. This girl had given me, one of the former roommates had given me these candles, and all kinds of different candles. I mean, just all black, white, red, green, doesn't matter. And she was like, they should fit in your menorah. So I burnt them, burned most of them. And it wasn't until, a couple of days later she explained to me that these were from a witch, but it was, and then after that she was like, well, she doesn't practice the good stuff in this case. And I was like, oh, I didn't think anything of it. But as time went on, as I continued to live in this place, I started becoming real depressed, quick to anger, quick to sadness, very negative about things, Yeah. And at one point, I was sitting in the house, and I could literally picture this like a head leaning downward, and you see the top of the forehead and the top of the head, and it had three horns on the front, one in the middle going back, and then the other two on the, at the forehead going back, but kind of curled a little bit. I never actually saw the face, but, that stemmed from something, and what, I don't know what it was, other than I call it a demon trying to attack me and break me down. Because at the time, the place I was living in, it was in the country, okay? So, nearest store was 6 miles away. So, that I had a lot of hard times living there. And it stemmed from an exorcism I did prior to moving there on the same girl that gave me the candles in this case, because she said that she was being possessed by Abaddon.
Yeah.
And so she, at the place I was living before the trailer, I know I'm kind of, to your listeners, I know I'm backtracking here, just to let y'all know. And the place I lived in beforehand, at the time, this girl and her boyfriend at the time, which is now her husband, they had come over, and she started acting real strange, started acting like a child, speaking like a child. The letter A was mysteriously just popping up on her body as if something was scratching it on there. She had a styrofoam cup in her hand, and when she was holding the cup with her fingertips, she was actually able to scribble the A perfectly with her thumb and forefinger separately, all four separate, And her strength had become a lot more than what she was usually. And her boyfriend at the time, he was no slouch, he was a strong guy, 5'5". He was kind of husky, he was strong, and he was having a hard time holding her down. At that point, she was pushing him off. Wow. And looking at her face, I could see her face, but also I could see another face. And I saw the same face that I described moments ago in this case. And, my only reaction was to, take care of the problem, so to speak. And I did what I thought I needed to do and knew how to do it. And she eased up. I knew it wasn't gone, but she never got bothered again. It wasn't until, like I said, when I moved in that place and everybody moved out, she gave me the candles, and that's when everything started going downhill for me at that point, And when I finally moved out of that place, I still had a lot of negativity on me at the time. It took about a month for me to recoup, basically, if you want to call it. From that, for me, it was living in that type of situation was a traumatic situation. So it took about a month to finally really understand that I wasn't living there anymore, and that I didn't have to go back to that, and I hadn't had any experiences like that after the fact.
Wow.
That was a pretty eye-opening experience for me about faith in this case. Because at the time, I was depressed at the time. My dog had disappeared, it was up and vanished. So I was really down in the dumps. So it just made things easier for it. And I was questioning my faith at the time and whatnot, because I had been praying, not understanding that everything happens for a reason, Not trying to put this into a religious concept of any kind, but for me, I'm not religious. I'm more faith spirituality. Yes, there is a God to me. There are angels to me. There is a devil. There's a hell. There are demons. Everything else in between. You just got to pick your side at that point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, I was going into the non-belief aspect, and being a non-believer is worse than praying to Satan. Because you're open to anything at that point.
Yeah, interesting. And I will say too, with some of my own encounters with definite like darker entities or something that I might consider a demon, it definitely made me feel the same way and questioning, if the paths I was following was correct or what. But I think you're right that it all happens for some sort of bigger purpose or reason. When I had to basically perform a sort of deliverance on Brittany that time when something was channeling through her, it was a very similar situation to the one that you described. I find it weird that whatever these things, when these things come through, they do try to portray themselves as sounding like children, or just they try to like deceive you and trick you. Obviously, you're looking at your friend there talking like this, and then the physical strength and everything. I mean, it's very real to the people who have experienced it, and yeah, it'll change your life. That's for sure.
It can. And then after all of that, it just put me back in, because my lady had told me at the time, that everything happens for a reason, and I just totally dismissed it at the time. And it wasn't until, a few years later, that probably around 2016, that I was like, okay, I need to listen to what she says, and then started taking that into account. And then basically it just reaffirmed my faith in God to the point to where now nothing can shake it at this point, I mean, I have zero fear. Whatever happens at this point in my life, I don't question things anymore. I'm just like, well, whatever's going to happen, it'll rule how it's going to go,
Yeah. I remember a couple months ago we were talking, and I think you had gotten on some new medication or something and had a sort of nightmare, right?
Yeah, it was this asthma medication that the doctor had prescribed to me after I got out of the hospital. One of the side effects was it says it actually can induce nightmares, which it did. I mean, I did have, some weird dreams off of it. This one in particular I told you about, the audience about, was that I was asleep and I could picture this red entity with the three horns, and I could even hear myself in my sleep say out loud, "You are a heretic. My faith is my shield. I will smite you." And then shortly after that, I woke up and never had that dream again, even on the medication. Never had anything similar to that.
Yeah, and I think we had discussed too that maybe if that was the same one from the same thing that had came through that girl, that maybe it saw that you were feeling a little vulnerable from that medicine and tried to come through. But even in that state,
well, as well as I do that, and I'm going to say it like this because I'm sure that's what it is the demon holds grudges. Once you show it no fear, you have shown that you will fight, you will win. It will attempt again and again and again and again. And like I said, at this point in my life, I got zero fear. It can come in at once, but I got no fear at this point in my life at all, period.
Yeah, so really it's pretty much not like what can it do, because that's kind of, or I believe that they strongly use fear, to control people and to be able to harm people through that fear. What I find interesting is, when you look up Abaddon, a lot of times people do depict him with horns. I find it interesting that you were seeing him with 3 horns, because, you know, when you think of something with horns, you think 2 symmetrical horns, so it's just very strange that...
Well, that's just a common perception. That's a common perception that we all, as humans, we see rams have 2 horns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You know, and if you look at deer, they have 2 antlers. Okay? Whether they're big or small, they have 2 antlers in the numbers of 2. But I feel that I saw the true face of what it is. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, most people don't get that, quotes, honor, so to speak. You know, to see the true face of your enemy. You know? Because demons use, you know, they try to corrupt people. They use chaos to corrupt individuals. And they take slightly corrupted individuals and make that cancer become, just magnetize it to a huge factor to where someone will do bad things to others, in this case, to inflict in that aspect.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. I remember another thing we were talking about. I think it was the time you said when you had first gotten some of your more spiritual tattoos, and that you had actually like seen I guess I would say like things approached you through people, kind of snarling at you and things like that.
No, because when I got my first tattoo on my left arm, in this case, which I did get it for a spiritual reason, in this case, as protection and whatnot, to openly mark myself, in that case, for purpose. Because, of course, you know, the Bible says don't get tattoos and mark yourself for the dead. Now, people would say that, I'll get to the main point in a minute, but most people would say when it says don't get tattoos and don't mark yourself for the dead, it could mean either one, or don't do it to mark yourself for the dead. But, you know, neither here nor there, I did it, okay? And I did it for a reason. So it's not an actual religious symbol, you know, like a Star of David or a cross or anything like that. You know, it's something that means something to me. In this case, it's of Templar origin. And when I first got it, you know, and I was walking in the grocery store and whatnot, the first time I went out in public with it like that, showing it, I mean, it was like people, literally, there were people who stared and had ugly looks on their face, like, that's gross, you know, and you could see people curl up their lips like, ugh, you know, stuff like that. You know how people do when they see something they don't like or smell something they don't like. You know, that was the look I was getting from people in this case.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's quite interesting, you know, very, very interesting indeed, due to the fact that it's, you know, I can understand if it was a tattoo being public that was something you should keep covered, you know, like something that's in an adult manner or something like a naked woman or something like that. That I could understand, but not to this aspect, not to the aspect. And even with the one in the middle of my chest, you know, when people see it, it's a stare-a-thon, you know. It's just a slight, you can see the curvature of people's eyes and the squinting of it, like, I don't like that. Or they'll move, you know.
Yeah. Do you think that was partly to do with anything to do with the demons or anything like that?
Of course, when one fails, they tell them all.
Yeah.
Plus, remember a lot of times when you and I, when you were doing quite a few of your live videos on YouTube with the spirit box, you know, and there's that one aspect where there was one night where you had Eric on there. Remember when you had Eric and I didn't even know you were doing a box session. I saw you were live and I just jumped in, and all of a sudden my name just kept popping out of that box.
Yeah, that night was crazy.
Yeah, and then Eric was confused because he's like, well, I don't understand, you know. He wanted to know. I wanted to explain it or do what I could to explain it, but, you know, that's what happens. You know, when you put yourself out there in this aspect as a warrior and you've chosen your side, your name rings across realms, and my name rings across realms. You know, maybe not to other strangers who may do their own spirit box sessions or whatnot, but with you, yeah. I mean, come on, with you, my name pops out of your box when I'm on there. When I'm on there watching while you're live, my name comes out of that box. And what else comes after that, my name? Do you recall?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot about knights.
Templar.
Templar.
That's the key word.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more about the Knights Templar.
Knights Templars were and are an organization of human beings that basically they protect. In the original days when they were founded, they helped pilgrimages, people who made pilgrimage to Israel. They protect them to and from. Okay, but they also protected the Holy Land as well. Now, I come from a Jewish background. A lot of people are like, wait a minute, you come from a Jewish background, but you're talking about Templars. And yes, they fought Muslim at the time. If I remember correctly, was the Ottoman Empire in this case, who attempted to attack and take the Holy Land. They eventually succeeded at some point, but they're a group of individuals who fight in the name of God. Okay? Mm-hmm. There's also a brotherhood of Muslims that is attached to the Templars. Same process. In this case, they do the same thing. They fight in the name of God. Period. There's no judgment in this case. There's no, oh, you're an infidel, you're a blasphemer or whatnot. It's just, and like I said, you've got to choose your side. So these groups of people, like the Templar, who fight in the name of God, they fight, wickedness in high and low places. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's what they do. Even though you might see them quietly out doing charity work, we're all searching for that heretic and that blasphemer or whatnot. We're all looking for that particular demon that's hosting in somebody, that's infesting somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because in my life, or over the years doing this stuff, it's a theme that continues to come back. Like just the other day, me and Joe were at that convention, and we actually got to talking to a man there who does similar work, and I found a lot of similarities to some of his cases, to some of mine, dealing with demons and infestation, and man, it's crazy when you actually start to see how real it really is and how it affects people. Like I've said before, I'm just glad that there are people like you and people like him who are on the right side.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people that are on the right side. They just do it little by little. I mean, you've got people who are in Wiccan covens who do the same thing. Mm-hmm. They just do it in a different way. You got Celtic priests and priestesses who still do the same thing. It's not all about being a one religion here or one religion there. It's all about spirituality and faith. As long as you got faith brings you power and strength. Spirituality brings you nothing but constant enlightenment. So those are two key points of mathematics. And instead of understanding, you start to begin to overstand. At that point, overstanding is basically stating, okay, I've learned from the bottom, now I'm going to the top in this matter. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Those are the three key elements. We all start in, quote, religion, and I call it that box. So we all start in that box, whether it be with the Torah, the New Testament, the Quran, whether it be whatever you do. Shinto, it doesn't matter. You always got to start from the bottom, and you work your way outwards. And eventually, you'll pop your head out of that box, and you'll start speaking into the universe to gain more enlightenment. And enlightenment comes as you grow older. You have epiphanies about things at times, and that's what, and as long as you have that pure, unadulterated, raw faith, you don't tame it, you don't curb it, you just let it grow raw and wild. And you'll be fine. Nothing will bother you. Nothing will try to attack you. Period.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking to someone who came from, at one point, saying, yeah, I believe in God. or whatnot, to having losing my faith, to coming back from that edge point, you know, coming back from that edge point, but coming back stronger than I ever had before. Seeing and realizing, you know, that when someone says, you know, things come to pass, everything happens for a reason, you know, and I saw those reasonings later, and it reaffirmed my faith, and I understood.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. What are, just for people listening, is there any other things that you do for protection, or do you think that the most powerful thing is that lack of fear?
Fear is my ally. You know, even though a lot of people say that's Darth Maul, that's a Star Wars quote. Absolutely, it is. It is absolutely a Star Wars quote, because you know that quote. I'm gonna pull this out because this is it's my header for my email. Been like that for years. Fear attracts the fearful, the strong, the weak, the innocent, the corrupt. Fear is my ally. As long as fear is your ally, it's someone else's enemy. And you'll never fall short on that. And you don't have to go and put fear into people just by just showing pure faith can put fear into people. And fear fear is a control factor. But what else do I do? Basically, I pray. You know, always. You know, and plus, you know, I've decorated my body with certain symbols in this case for that purpose of always having, you know, because mine are mostly skulls with certain items with the skulls. And in that case, you know, the skulls can see. You know, they can see spiritually. I got one on my left arm, one on my right arm, one on my chest. One can see in 3 different directions. I don't have to watch my back. God's got my back. I don't have to worry about that. You know, occasionally I do look behind me, though. You know.
Yeah, I understand. That's interesting. My first tattoo was a skull, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what skulls are a very powerful property. They hold power. In this case, whether you have a real one, a fake one for ornaments, you know, or whatever, you know, they hold power. They hold the power because it's sacred knowledge, in this case, that you end up gaining.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. I also just realized that I have my skull labradorite necklace sitting right beside me, and I was like playing with it while you were talking about that. So just some weird synchronicities coming up during the talk.
And the funny thing is that I have a picture of I have a drawing that a buddy of mine did for me on my wall to my left, which is a Templar cross with a skull in the middle, with the Inquisition symbol with it. And I also have that necklace also hanging on my wall. So, you know, I don't have anything to worry about, you know, period.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up, let's see. Remember that one of those last sessions we did, the one that didn't get recorded somehow?
Is that the one about the dragon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to go into the UFOs and Anunnaki and things of that nature. But I remember we were doing that session, and it was very clear and direct communication.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like so excited to go straight to it and caption it and see what we got. And then I just find it only recorded a few seconds of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was a conversation you and I had a while back. That was, to me, that was something that was not meant to be shared. That was for our educational purposes, something that you and I were supposed to know in this case.
Exactly.
To me, that's how I looked at it. Because I mean, when you ask certain questions and whatnot, you know, after that, I started digging deep into, you know, dragon lore, you know, whether it be medieval, Chinese, Japanese, and looking at Chinese lore, you know, I found out there were many different dragon deities that basically had walls, you know, the mountains, the seas, the land, the world, you know, one that encompassed the world.
Yep.
And kept it in depth.
Yeah, and what it said was, or the one thing it said about the dragon that night, it brought up the dragon that protects the world, right, is what it said.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it said.
And, you know, that whole session was just like, you know, there's a lot of sessions and experiences that I have off of camera and off, like, you know, stuff that you won't ever be able to see on YouTube because it was never caught on camera. And those are definitely some of my most powerful and best experiences. That being one of the best sessions I think that I ever had was that day. It was really, it was,
yeah, because it was an hour and a half of constant. It was constant for an hour and a half. There was no stoppage until we stopped. And it was constant. There was responses everywhere.
And we were getting a lot about the whole 7 thing. We were getting just a lot of different stuff. I can't even remember some of the stuff that happened, but it's just amazing to me when things like that happen, and then it's just like, well, I have no way of proving that this happened to anyone, but I mean, me and you heard it, and that's, like you said, it was for us, and I think it maybe we'll find out why.
Because we kept getting 7. When we asked about angels, we got the number 7. We asked about demons, we got the number 7. I think it was your name came up quite a bit. We had some other names that came about. I think one was I forgot what that guy's name was. It was a male's name. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't get it out. But I had to come back to that one. But yeah, we got a lot of people's names. We got a lot of males that came through it, but we had that one consistent voice, though, throughout the whole first hour. There was one voice that kept saying it. It was the same voice that said Dragon was the protector of the world.
Yeah.
In this case. And when you asked about how many angels are around you, and it popped up in the same voice to your left, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and that's where you had the skull and the Templar.
Yeah, because I mean, I have a picture of an angel with a sword,
mm-hmm.
you know, in a cloak, holding the sword down, and it has no face and whatnot. And when it said to your left, I looked right over to my left, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, it was one of those nights where it's like clear communication coming back and forth, and man, I remember I was pretty mad when it was not recorded, but like it is what it is, and
right. I mean, because you had made sure it was recording. You said, "Hold on, let me start the recording." You had started the recording that night, and at the end of it, you were like, "You're not gonna believe this. This has never happened before." You know, and at the same time, I'm like, "Wow, my bad luck for this guy."
Yeah. So Gwen has a question in the chat. She wants to know, what do you feel like 7 is?
You know, that's a question that is still up for debate, because if you look at it from, you got 2 perspectives. 7 is a miraculous number in the Bible. It comes, you know, it comes up multiple times in the Bible. In this case, not the word 7 or the number 7, but there are things that I even sent that to you, Alex, actually, about that.
Yep.
I believe. Let's pull that up very quick, because I thought I sent that to you.
Yeah, and I think it's like the most used number. So I mean,
yeah.
Whatever the case on that, it's a special number either way, definitely. But yeah, pull up because I want to remember what you said too. I think.
Yeah, I'm looking for it now, actually, because also the where is it?
See if I can find it too, because I remember you brought it up to me one day, and we kind of, once again, like you said, it's up for debate because, like, okay, here it is. Yeah, you said just that we might have been wrong about thinking that 7 was all evil or negative just because of that fact about the Bible numerology with the number 7.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it was so far back and I couldn't find it.
And we consider, I mean, like, I'm still very open-minded and open to interpretation about the whole 7 thing. But yeah, in this specific article, it says that 7 occurs 287 times in the scriptures. And, you know, they kind of break down the numerology and, you know, and then you got the 7th day.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, because I mean, when you, for example, just for a moment, I just wanted to do this for your listeners in this case as well, is that I put 7 in Google. Y'all can do this too. I put 7 as a demonic number. Okay, and the first thing that comes up is the mystical number 7, and it says, there's a question. It says, people ask, is 7 the devil's number? The number refers to triumph of God's number 7 over the devil's number 666. So, of course, mathematically speaking, 7 is always more and will always equal more than 6. Always. You see what I'm saying? So, and then for me, mathematics goes into faith, because you have to look at each day. You know, today's mathematics, what is today's mathematics going to equal today? You know, knowledge plus friendship. Gaining knowledge, earning a friendship. And if there's 5% of knowledge, and a lot of people don't know about 5%, 5% is based everything on math in this case. And that's something a lot of y'all should take a look into, is how the 5% of the nation, actually, they're not Muslims, but are part of the Nation of Islam or anything like that, but they do harbor some of that. But I'm just letting y'all know, so if some of y'all are not into that kind of thing, that's what you're going to run into. But take it with an open mind. You know, that's what faith is, taking everything with an open mind. What was her question again? I forgot. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Oh, it's okay. She just said we went over some of it, but just what you think about what you think 7 is.
Honestly, I'm sorry, ma'am. I got totally off track with that answer. Like, I gave her a whole political answer, just like a politician would, right? But to give her the answer in this case, beers plus sugar equals higher taxes. But to me, the number 7, you know, taking it for what it's worth, is a holy number in this manner. So you're constantly, you know, getting this number 7 in this manner. I don't think you're getting in touch with anything that's demonic. I think you're on the verge of getting something that's angelic or just absolutely holy. You know what I mean? Because it's just with you, you're on the verge of you're a grassroots investigator. You don't take no shit. You don't pull the punches everybody else does. You do it right. You do it right the first time. Okay? And you've had a lot of experiences that, you know, people just can't dismiss in any shape, form, or fashion. I'm pretty sure a lot of your listeners here in this case would agree with me in that case. I mean, we can all sit and watch other groups online, but always come back to Bigfoot Bob with his Bigfoot experiences, or we can come back to Spectral Wolfpack and get a good paranormal experience and say, wow, you're on to something. Something wants to communicate with Bob. Something is trying to contact Bob, using you as a conduit. I know I go off on tangents here, but I mean, you know, basically it said to me again, the number 7 is holy, just to answer the question.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that too, that you said. And yeah, it's something that I've wondered too. I know some people have talked about it being sort of warning, like a warning number too, or something that's supposed to warn you of something. But yeah, it's definitely still up for debate. It's a very mysterious thing going on, but it's happened so many times, or just where it comes through my ITC devices to where there's got to be something. It means something, you know.
It definitely means something. It definitely means something, but in this case, obviously something's watching over you. In this case, that's good. And when you come out with 7, you know, it's like how when one time you and I were doing a spirit box. I think it was our second one. It was the same one we did later on that evening.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, when I asked the question, it said 7.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, great. You know, at the time, I was kind of like, well, what if this is something pretending to be something good? You know, let's just be prepared on that aspect.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's everywhere. It's in every single one of your, you know, of your recordings. Every single solitary one. No one else is really getting this. Eric's not really getting it. You know, I watch him for 8, 9 hours, but only when you're around do that come around.
Yeah. I'm not sure, man. I really don't know, but you know, we'll continue trying to figure it out. It's a ongoing mystery. It's definitely, like you said. I mean, there was a session the other day. Once again, this one didn't get recorded. Like somehow my camera wasn't recording, and it literally said 7. It said my name, and it said several other things as well that. I was really, once again, very angry that it didn't record. Not like, you know, like angry, but I was just upset, and I was like, damn, why wasn't it recording? But sometimes it's just not meant to be recorded. So it's just... So we're flying through the time here. Let's move on to the Anunnaki. I want to learn a little bit about that, because I don't know too much about them and the theories. I'm going to pull up here. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Anunnaki are basically our, quote, supposed to be our quote, forefathers, in this case of humanity. We're technically like a science experiment from another alien race. We were created and brought here from what is called the planet Nibiru, which is some people call planet X, or which is one of the, like, 10, 12, 13 planets actually cycle around our main solar system, which scientists say they can't find. And we were supposed to have been brought here by them to use as slave labor or experimentation, and yet we've just grown and run wild. Because when you look at the Sumerian texts, when you look at a lot of the different ancient religions like Sumerians, Egyptians, Cambodian, the Hans, stuff like that, you know, when you look and they have these scriptures, you see a figure sitting down always. But when you actually take that figure and look at them closely compared to the people in front of them, even in Mayan and Mayan Incan civilization, they always, if you stood them up, they're always at least 2 to 3 feet taller, 6, you know, in that aspect. They're way taller than the people in the paintings are. And Nibiru, these people, the Anunnaki, are supposed to be very tall, very intelligent. In this case, they actually ruled over Earth for a long period of time.
Yeah, I remember when I was talking to Chris on here. It was an earlier show about his Hollow Earth theories and things like that. We went a little bit into Nibiru and the Anunnaki, I think, too. So I'm starting to remember some of this. Yeah, I mean, and with some of the things that I've thought about, you know, where humans came from or things like that, I mean, it starts to make sense, honestly, when you think about it.
Well, I mean, in theory, when you look at the theory of creationism and the Bible, not Darwin's theory, we come from apes according to Darwin's theory, but in the age-old, you know, creationism theory, we all come from the sea. Now, when you read the Bible or the Torah, which is the Old Testament, it says God blew Nepesh. Nepesh is the Hebrew word for souls, into all living things of the sea. Duh. Mm-hmm. There you go. You know, and we share a lot of commonalities with a lot of animals. You know, to our blood is compatible with pigs. I mean, vice versa, excuse me. You know, so that leads into Bigfoot.
Yeah.
There we go. You know, most people don't believe because we don't have a specimen in that case for that. But if we have more evidence on UFOs and alien sightings than we have on Bigfoot. I mean, we've got videos of alien ships, stuff like that. That, you know, places like, for example, what's that forest? Hayabachu Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Hayabachu Forest. In the center of that forest, a lot of people, your listeners probably know about that. In the center, there's that circle. It's not a perfect circle, but it's a circle. Nothing grows in the middle of that circle at all, period. And they can't explain why. You know? And when there's been a, quote, alien craft sighting where it supposedly has landed or something like that, nothing grows in those spots.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that even here, and in certain areas around here where things like that have occurred. Why do you think that is, I wonder?
Because there's something, it's not radiation. It's probably a different, whatever they use for their ships. I mean, it's probably, in my personal opinion, and of course, this is my opinion only, is that whatever materials are used are something that is completely unknown on our element of things for what our element chart can explore and explain. And it's something that doesn't have to be poisonous to the earth to stop growth, but yet not kill anything either. Because the land's not barren. There's grass right there, but never grows. You know, it just, nothing. There's absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it reminds me of something similar. The place in North Carolina that I went to, the Devil's Tramping Grounds, where there's just like that perfect circle, and you know. But there's another legend there where the thing is, if you leave stuff in that circle, it'll be thrown out of the circle by the next morning. Unfortunately, I didn't get to test that theory. I'm going to go back there one day and do that. But yeah, I find that interesting. I think you're right about that too, and it makes me wonder too about, you know, like we're under the impression that everything needs oxygen for there to be life. Well, you know, what if there is a planet somewhere where things don't need oxygen to live, or you know, there's things like that.
Well, I mean, of course, look in play. You know, when you look in TV shows like Star Trek and movies like Star Wars, you know, stuff like that. There are plenty of species that don't need oxygen to breathe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think
breathe a different element.
Exactly. I think it could totally be possible. I mean, I think that really anything could be possible, and that, you know, we don't have everything figured out by any means.
No, we don't. We don't. In our own governments, every single government knows that there is some sort of alien life. You know, of course, in the mountains of New Mexico, in Area 51, stuff like that, they actually were exchanging technologies for, you know, we're making deals with these aliens and these Xenos and whatnot. And, you know, we as human beings, we've advanced. If you go by what scientists say our timeline is, we have advanced super fast, according to that timeline, from caveman Neanderthal to the rise of the Homo sapien to what we are now. There's no way in hell that if we could move that technologically fast, and as fast as we've come, we've had to have help, guidance, and some sort of push along the way. Kind of like, you know, you see your kid walking and he's about to stumble, you push him a little bit, give him that little balance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's kind of like that's what I think has been going on in this world.
Yeah, it would make sense with some of the stuff that's been. I mean, just if you just look at the last 100 years, just how far everything's came, and some of the ideas people have had and things like that. I found it interesting. You know, I was looking into Xenos, just the meaning of the word and everything. You know, the Greek word meaning stranger or alien. And then there's also a type of insect, I guess. But
no.
And that would be the same. That's the same thing that they called the aliens in the movie Alien, right? Or
yeah, they call them Xenos.
Yeah,
I believe so. If I remember correctly in the movie.
I find it interesting that it has, or just the Greek origin. I wonder you just think about those old, what's the word? I'm trying to think of what I was trying to say. Just those old cultures and everything, and their encounters with these things, and encounters with the paranormal and extraterrestrial and things like that. I wish there was even more about it than there is. I know there's some stuff out there, but
I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there. I mean, the answers are out there. I mean, I also believe in the hollow earth theory to a certain extent, because why is it that in a certain part of Antarctica there's a no-fly zone, no one's allowed to go there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hole right there, but no one's allowed to go there unless you work for one of the two governments, whether you work for the United States or Russia.
Yeah, and another thing about Antarctica and the North Pole is that on Google Maps and Google Earth, you don't really get access to those places on there. I thought
they're blurred out. Yeah, I don't find it weird. It's a cover up, because I mean, with all this, with all this news that we have about collusions with Russia and stuff like that in the United States and stuff like that, to me, these two governments are teaming up together to fool the public, because there's something going on, outside of regular human understanding that they don't want to be known.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's a question from Chris, and then I have one more question, and then we'll start wrapping it up. But Chris wanted to know, do you think whoever met Moses was an alien or time traveler? He said evidence suggests the Exodus location is real, even though not in the biblical location.
Well, of course it's real in this case, but did he have extraterrestrial contact? That I can't answer, because that's the first time I'm hearing about that one in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to tell you like it is, I can't answer it. But I mean, if you look at a lot of things from the Bible, they are real, of course. May not be in the exact locations, of course, but they are real. But as for the only thing I can say that I've known of any biblical alien encounters, when they talked about the fire, the chariot, the fire in the sky, stuff like that, something like that. They could have been seeing a flying saucer of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, to be lost in the desert for 40 years like that would make no sense if you have some sort of, advanced technological guidance. In this case, you would be at a certain point, but quicker, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, definitely something I want to look more into. It's something that I don't know enough about to really go into is on that. But I think John in the chat just said that his staff was rumored to be of extraterrestrial origin. I mean, it makes you wonder about some of those artifacts that are talked about, like similar to like King Solomon's seals and rings, things he would use to supposedly control demons.
Well, I mean, that could be actually, that could go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
That could actually be alien technology, or it could have been something of a higher understanding that we have no access to.
Yeah.
Either one, or it could have been something of a higher purpose, giving them technology that, I mean, that's
be
the
both.
only thing I can think of right off the bat. Could be both. Could be that the higher understanding sent the alien technology over, But, I mean, that's just me throwing, just stuff out there at this point, just being, quick thinking at this moment.
Well, that's exactly like what a lot of the stuff, or, even that things that I talk about or show, things in my videos, it's all, theory and opinion, and I can't say for sure, but we can speculate on it and just talk about it and throw it out there, because it's just cool to think about and to talk about. Before we wrap it up, I wanted to ask, have you had many UFO sightings yourself?
I have not had one in my whole life. I live in the hood, man. They're not coming out here. Okay. I live in a bad neighborhood. They are not going to come out here. I guarantee you that.
I think
So,
I think we talked about that once before. I've had several over the years. I mean, I remember some from when I was young, onward up until just a couple. I think it was a month or so ago.
But also take into account that you're the one that caught. You know, you've had the red eyes in the woods not once but twice. I think 3 times, if I'm correct, once or twice, 3 times, something like that. I mean, what? You know, possibly Mothman. I mean, let's think about this. I mean, things like you.
Apparently
Weird
so.
things like you. They obviously like you in this case. I mean, a lot of us have never. We've only been able to see what we can see online. You know, somebody else's experiences or whatnot. Like, wow, that's pretty awesome, or that's pretty scary. But you know, a lot of us have had paranormal experiences with spiritual aspects of things, whether good or bad. But you know, not very many people, sane people in this case, like yourself, you know, can confidently say, I've had a UFO experience. Most of the experiences take place in somewhere there's a rule out of the way, or a story that's been passed down, you know, from the 40s or 50s, something like that. So, I mean, to actually, and you don't live in New Mexico, you don't live in the mountains somewhere, so, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
You know, things like you.
One thing I think I've mentioned a couple times, but I'll talk about it again. After I started to think about the red eyes and the red lights I was seeing in the woods, having to deal with something to do with Mothman, I was outside of my front yard and I literally saw this giant shadow fly over top of me. And when I looked up, like, I couldn't see anything, but like it freaked me out because it was like huge and like much bigger than just a bird.
Did you hear or feel anything?
Do what?
Did you hear or feel anything? Like
No.
any flapping of wings, no wind, no
It was
breeze?
like completely silent. And you know, it was kind of windy that night, so maybe that's why I didn't hear anything, but I just saw it go over top of me. Like, I was walking, like, there's a street that runs in front of my house. I was like walking on that street and just saw it, and then I like looked up and just didn't see anything, and then I stayed there for a minute trying to figure out what caused it. But yeah. So still, once again, even with that, still a work in progress as to figuring out what the answers are, pretty much to everything.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, usually I keep the show running for about an hour. We filled that up very quickly. Is there anything else you wanted to say or bring up before we close it down?
I think that basically we all should keep an open mind to everything and just try to be understanding to gain enlightenment of these different types of things. You know, just educate yourselves. You know, don't depend on somebody to do it for you. You know, and for God's sake, stay away from the damn gimmick box crap.
You don't have to worry about me on that.
I was just telling your listeners the same thing, basically.
Notice I didn't touch it. You know, I didn't even because I saw the fad coming. It kind of came and went, but it's still lingering a little bit. But yeah. Do you have any? You don't have a channel of your own or anything that you wanted to promote, right? Or because if you have any links or anything like that.
Nope, I'm just a regular old guy that's just your good pal, just talking to you and, you know, sharing my experiences, because it's a good thing that you know, your everyday listeners and fans like myself, basically followers, can say, hey, I can relate, you know.
I think that's awesome, and I'm glad we did this. We flew through the hour incredibly fast.
Take a vote. Take a vote right now. How many of you people want the question to end? Type 1 or type 2 for no.
What was the question?
Well, I want your listeners, however many is in there, type 1 for yes, they want the session to be over at this point, or 2 for no.
Yeah, let's see. We'll do 1 for, you said 1 for yes to continue going?
1 for yes, let me retract that statement. 1 for yes to continue to keep going. Type 2 for no to just go ahead and stop.
And if you guys want us to continue going, we will continue going till, let's see, it's...
Next to 30 minutes, I'd say. But it's 10:35 Eastern, so another 25 minutes. Because we haven't touched Bigfoot yet.
Yeah, we got to touch Bigfoot. Okay, they got confused. They do say one, they want us to continue going. So let's continue going till, for 25 more minutes. And let's touch on Bigfoot a little bit.
Yeah, that's something, because you brought up the convention you went to in the beginning of this and the introduction and whatnot. How was that? How was that convention?
Man, it was awesome. Kind of the first of its kind of that size for Alabama, and I think it really went over well. One of the only complaints I heard was that some of the people were kind of uneasy about their... someone had some spirit boards they were selling there, and then Brittany was doing tarot readings. But I think they were just kind of misunderstood how it was working. Some people have this conception that tarot is going to like tell you how you're going to die or something like that, and it's just not how it is. It's more like just an advice. Yeah,
I personally don't touch the tarot, the Ouija board thing.
Yeah.
That's just... I have my reasonings, and I keep those to myself because I don't want to offend anybody in this manner. But outside of that, I don't touch that. I mean, you can walk outside your front door and get smacked by a damn bird and die because the beat go in your eye and pierce your brain, dead, Or a flying baby comes out and attacks your face, gnaws your nose off, and you bleed to death.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah.
I would not want that to happen, but it'd be fun. But it was a good event. I mean, like the overall turnout and everything, like I was impressed. And of course my presentation messed up, but I was able to kind of recover, and I ended up talking for longer than I thought I was going to. I just didn't get to show all of the clips that I wanted to, but it's okay. I learned a lot.
I mean, that's the whole point. It's a learning experience in this case. That's all it is. I mean, you got to put some information out there, and at the same time, you learn something now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but, like I was saying earlier, we have more evidence on aliens and UFOs than we do with Bigfoot in this case. I mean, we got tree snaps, stuff like that. But, for me personally, now all of you may or may not agree. It's up to you, of course. But for me, I personally think he's like the Predator. He's got the cloaking thing. He can blend in with the environment. He's, he can he can possibly teleport. He might be an alien species, because it was one of the theories of the Anunnaki, going back to the Anunnaki, that this creature was brought to this planet, the species.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's actually an alien.
And there are, it's in one of John Keel's books where they talk about people seeing them get onto UFOs with other entities or beings. But there are a lot of theories. People talk about the cloaking and the teleportation. Even going into, some Native American legends I've heard, where there are certain places where the right, I'm trying to think how to say it. I guess the right person or being can use this certain place to teleport from one place to another. Some people talk about them using the trees and things like that.
Well, I mean, think about it. When, how can something that big and heavy walk through foliage and not be hurt? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you and I walk through foliage, we're just setting off alarms all over the woods. And, if there are a Bigfoot, they'd be like, oh, there's a human. Please.
Yeah, we're very easy to detect in the woods nowadays. But I'm sure there's, like some of those tribes that have been out there, untouched. I'm sure that they're very, very accustomed to the ways of the forest and very stealthy with the way they hunt and everything, the way they walk. But as far as over here in the United States, yeah, you might as well, I'm pretty sure anyone could hear us coming from a mile away.
But the one place that I have not heard outside of Antarctica, where there has been a Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yowie sighting, Africa.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I know there's probably got to be something out there. I've definitely followed the dinosaur sightings, such as like the Mekele and Bimbe, but I haven't looked too much into that either myself. So I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, that right there, I mean, if there's something living in Congo, I mean, it's got to be damn good. You know, it's got to be giving Bigfoot a run for its money. You know, hide and go seek champion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, imagine coming across a dinosaur in the woods or in the forest.
I mean, do that. Imagine being in the woods in this case, and your listeners will say the same thing. Being in the woods, in the middle of the woods, and coming across something that's 7, 8 feet, 9, possibly 10 feet tall, that's older than you and older than 3 of your grandparents put together, possibly, because we don't know the lifespan of these things. You know, do I believe they exist? Fuck yeah, I believe they exist. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, who's to say that they couldn't? You know, I mean, think about it. I mean, you've got sightings in multiple places of mermaids. I mean, there's Japanese sightings. When the Japanese were attacked during World War II, were in Okinawa and part of the during the Pacific War, I can't remember the islands per se, but they actually said they saw mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't pretty looking. They were creature-like, and they walked on. They had 2 feet, but their feet and hands had fins. You know, when they get noticed, they jump back in the water. You know, I mean, these are coming from, you know, war vets. You know, come on now.
I actually just found a book at the thrift store the other day that kind of goes into a lot of stuff about dolphins, but also about mermaids and things like that. And I still haven't read it yet because I just got it, but definitely something that I want to learn more about. And you know, when I was in high school, I was like super into marine biology, and I love giant squids and the idea of like sea monsters and things like that. So I mean, mermaids are right there with it. I've got like several little mermaid statues that I keep. Like on my shelf behind me, I have like a whole shelf kind of dedicated to like the
You've
fae.
got those damn dolls on that shelf too.
Well,
all
that
those creepy ass. Out of all your dolls, that scares me the most, you got a My Little Pony.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Brittany
Yeah,
got me
I
that
love it.
one as a joke. So it's back. Oh, I got a Furby too.
I know that Furby, that evil Furby.
Dude, that one day, okay, it was the day after we had done that session with it, I turned the camera off and it literally started talking and said it was, and like it was like talking in an evil voice. And I mean, that one does do that because its eyes changed and everything. But like, it happened right when I turned the camera off, and then when I turned the camera on, I caught some of that. But I was like, "Are you evil?" And it was like, "Mm-hmm," like in this weird voice, and I don't know. It was.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, I mean, anything is possible. I mean, when it comes to stuff like Bigfoot, I believe that. Me personally, it's like how we see chimpanzees, apes, orangutans, baboons, and all. There's different groups, different species and subspecies, and they've been able to flourish quietly.
Yeah, it's really interesting because in some of the areas that I go, it are not far from civilization and cities, but that's where I've had some of my most incredible like encounters or things that I've experienced out there. So whatever they are, they're extremely stealthy. They are very well adapted to their environment, and you know, there's a reason why we're not seeing them all the time, and I think because they're more intelligent than a lot of people would think.
Right, and I think they have their own language that they can speak. Their own. They just don't speak it when there's people around. They use the tree knocking because they think that we're stupid, and that's the only way that we can communicate with them back.
You know what I've noticed too with the knocks is them using it to kind of warn the others when I'm around, because there'll be times, like I've talked about this one story a couple of times. There's this one specific area where across this creek we'll hear a knock when we're coming in and a knock when we're coming out. You know, maybe it is trying to see if we'll communicate with it or what. But, you know, there's sometimes I think maybe it's trying to, like, let the others know that I'm coming, things like that. But
Yeah, I mean, it could be, it could be Alex's back. I don't know. Or it could be human in the area. Stay away. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not sure. One thing I will say, when I heard those voices, which sounded similar to some type of native language or what they call the samurai chatter, it definitely was. I could hear it sounded like two or three talking to each other, and man, it's weird when you hear that in the woods where you're not.
Yeah, that's reminiscent, because I remember I used to watch that show Finding Bigfoot, and I saw an episode one time where they mentioned that they stopped and wait a minute, you hear talking, and they were like, oh, they're communicating with each other. They've got to have some sort of spoken language. I mean, everything pretty much does.
Yeah. M City asked, am I finding an increase in structures or less? M City, lately it's been very strange. There will be structures that will be there one day and they'll be gone the next, and the whole area will change. Even in one area where I had a game camera, it was like around the game camera everything changed, but like the only thing I caught on the camera was like deer and things like that, which I've showed. Gwen has a question. Does Ian think that Bigfoot mimics people, and why would they make these mimic sounds?
Well, yeah, I believe that they can, because they're super intelligent. They're a super intelligent species, because in the simple fact of, to draw off the trail,
Yeah, I think
to draw them in to study us, because technically when we go into a territory, we are technically the invaders. You know what I mean? So take that comment that however you want, but I mean, we walk into in the jungle where there's nothing but animals, there's no civilization. You're in their territory. You are technically the visitor or the invader, one of the two. Mm-hmm. And they'll do it to pull us in to go deeper and say, okay, how far are you really going to go? Are you worthy enough of contact, or are we just going to study you and then push you out?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when you hear sounds like that, because there's even been times people have talked about them being able to mimic sounds of like cars going by or things like that, or sirens and things. So it makes you wonder if some of the sounds you hear out in the woods are Bigfoot or something else. I know there's times where I've been mixed up and turned around because I thought I heard like a car going a certain way, and then I checked my map and I'm going the complete wrong way toward the road, going further into the woods. There's talk about people getting zapped and things like that.
I mean, look, apes can do it too. I mean, regular gorillas and chimpanzees can mimic people to a small degree. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's scientifically proven. If they have the power to do it once they learn it, why can't a Bigfoot do it? Why can't something like that do it? I mean, it's bigger. It has a bigger cranium. That means it has a bigger capacity of brain power.
Yeah. I was wondering about the time I was out there camping and I kept hearing like dogs barking, but it seemed like there's no dogs actually around or even close to me, but I would hear them like getting closer and closer, and then it would just stop. Then, the voices I was hearing, there's been several times where I've heard that. Of course, most of the time it's just far away enough to where the camera barely picks it up, but I can hear it, and it doesn't sound like a normal voice, but there are times where it does too.
Well, when you're in a quiet environment, you have to understand your hearing will increase, and that your senses increase when you're in nature. Your natural senses increase when you're in nature, and you accept nature as it is. So your senses increase, so you can hear it. But the camera microphone is only made to catch a certain decibel, and that's it.
Another thing too, when I'm out like at night, for instance, my vision is not as great, so like that'll increase my hearing as well.
Exactly. Your sense of smell and your hearing.
Yeah, that's awesome to think about. Yeah, one of my favorite times was when I was out with my friend Ken, and we were like really deep in the woods in Talladega National Forest, and we started hearing the owl calls like during the day, which I'm not saying it's not possible that an owl wouldn't make a call during the day. It was just everything that was happening around us, you know, wood knocks, this turkey that like might have gotten attacked by something that we heard, and then this owl call. It was just all adding up to be a very strange, like we were out there, man. I feel like we were like, I don't know, I feel like we were being surrounded by these things, and they were just kind of, like you said, observing us, seeing what we were about in their territory. So,
I mean, that's one I think. I mean, owls can make calls during the daytime. Just thank God you just didn't hear two owls meeting at night. That's the scariest sound you'll ever hear.
Seriously, owls make some. I mean, there's plenty of people that have mistaked owls for Bigfoot, or you know, like someone who with an untrained ear, you might hear a barred owl or a screech owl and just head straight to it being some type of monkey, because they do sound similar.
Right, or you can hear a red fox in the woods during mating season. It screams like a raging baby running through the woods at night. Ah! You know, you hear that, you're like, oh God, what the hell is that? And you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Oh, it's the red fox. Never mind.
Yeah, and bobcats, and even squirrels and chipmunks can make some weird sounds.
Yeah, they do, but they're not nocturnal though. You know, you'll see the little dumbasses running around all over the woods because they're hunting around for everything they buried last winter and can't find it. You know,
I find them very funny, and sometimes like there's been times where there was one time I thought it was a chipmunk or a squirrel, and I looked over and there was a bear sitting right there, and I was like, oh crap. But like the bear just stood up, like it was being real quiet, just kind of like rustling through the leaves. The bear stood up, looked at me, and me and the bear both ran in opposite directions and just were out of there.
Yeah, I mean, bears are, you know, unless they're, you know, very rarely do bears actually attack people. You know, it's either during mating season, territorial, or it's because they're wearing something on them that causes that bear to get close to that human. Otherwise, they're going to go in the opposite direction.
Yep. Here's a question from Chris, and it kind of goes off of what we were talking about. Do you think that Bigfoot is comfortable with us entering into their lives in a way it is like... You don't think so? No,
hell no. Hell no. I don't think they want any part of us. Because the thing is that it's kind of like, you know, you know, for years when you listen to the stories of the Native Americans, you hear a lot of times where they stayed away from them. Mm-hmm. You know, and very rarely had contact with them. They had contact with them. It was often enough over the years because they shared the land. But they don't want us in their territory. They don't want any part of us. Where they can, of course, they can come out and they can see, you know, they're observant creatures. You know, it's like a dog. You bring a dog into a new environment, it's going to smell around to check its environment to see if it's safe or unsafe. And that's what they do. They look and they can see things. They can see what people do. You know, there are certain people they can see that come into the woods. You treat the land with respect, they'll be okay with you coming in, but don't go too far. You know.
No,
but in reality, the question, no, I don't think they are.
Especially after seeing like what we did to the Native Americans and like, you know, things like that. Like, why would they want to come around us? Why would they want anything to do with us?
Look what we do to ourselves. Look what we do to our own humanity. In this case, we you know, as human beings, we slaughtered and killed each other, you know, for hundreds and thousands of years, you know, for one reason or another, whether it be for land, resources, politics, religion, one reason or another. So, you know, you see these things, you observe, you know, you see how the land gets smaller and smaller in certain places and they're having to move, you know. Again, we don't know the age of these particular creatures. You know, we have no idea what their lifespan is. They can be like a Wookiee and live 400 years. You know, we have no idea. They can have an 80-year lifespan for all we know. But, you know, according to a lot of the Native American lore is that they have a hierarchy. You know, you have your elders, you have your warriors, you have your gatherers, you have your hunters, you have your women and children. You know, that's society, but I think it's more they live in a primitive way, but yet they're very, very superior intellectually to us.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think so too. Tim had a question for me. He said, when you left an offering, do you ever notice it missing? Like, did they take it? With food offerings, it's hard to say because, of course, any animal can come up and take it. One of the last things I left was an apple, and on my game cam, you never actually see anything take it, but it was taken by something. I think the deers ate it, but for some reason my camera didn't record it. I have left some sticks and things like that have been moved around, but I found some weird little root ball things that I felt like something might have left for me, like in a specific spot near where I had left something for them. So I don't know.
Well, if you're finding things that have been replaced that, deer aren't going to replace it. I mean, if you left the apple on the ground, yeah, a deer could have gotten it, something like that. But that's why, you put it on a tree somewhere where they can't get to it, Other than if you got bears in the area, then, a bear can climb a tree and get it,
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something that's more superior than the bear's not going to come into the territory,
Yeah, and one thing I want to try is something that Chris had said was to kind of hang them off of like some kind of cord, like over trees, so it's like up, 7 or 8 feet off the ground, and try that as well. But
yeah,
with the game cameras, like I think that they avoid those at all costs as well. But either that or they do have some type of cloaking ability to where that camera doesn't see in that spectrum or that color, whatever they can do. There's some reason why game cameras aren't capturing them.
I mean, they could probably see the game cameras. They probably have a sight of vision that we don't know about, a way of seeing with their vision, and they can see things, the lens can sometimes glare, and they can probably see it from a ways away, or they can notice something on a tree that wasn't there before, because if you live somewhere long enough, you know what's what and what's around, and you can notice things that are different, especially if you're clearly observant.
Yeah, and I'm sure they watch us, you go in the woods and actually have to set up the camera and everything like that. They're probably sitting there watching you like, I'm going to avoid that spot at all costs and not even go near there.
Exactly. Unless you see a flying rock come at the thing. They're like, well, okay.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Let's wrap it up here and leave everyone with those last thoughts. We covered everything from demons, Anunnaki, UFOs, Bigfoot. I think we covered a lot of really good stuff.
I think we did too. And had quite a lot of good questions from your audience. I mean, you guys need to participate more with more questions. It's great.
Yeah, the questions. Everyone always loves the questions because a lot of other podcasts, they might not ask questions from the chat and things like that, and it has definitely made these shows so much more when you guys ask questions, because it, you think of things at different angles than I would, and than the guests would, and it's definitely always awesome when they do ask questions. But,
no, absolutely.
But anyway, man, thanks so much for coming on here tonight. I appreciate it. And let's do a live stream sometime. We'll do some more Ghost Box soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to, and I hope that your guests like me enough that we can come on here together again.
Absolutely, man. I'd love that. Before you go, do a wolf howl for the wolf pack. We get every guest to do it.
Oh!
Thank you, man. The last guest, actually, he was kind of feeling sick, so he didn't do one. So I'm glad you do.
I support the Wolfpack, man. That's why I subscribe and get the bell notifications. That's what y'all need to do too. Go and pick the Wolfpack. If you're not a member, go hit the subscribe button and hit that bell notification. Also go to Bigfoot Bob's channel. This is another channel for Bigfoot. Do the same thing there. Show him some love.
Thank you, man.
You're really doing a lot of work for us.
I appreciate it, man. Well,
So,
have a great night, man, and we will talk more on the flip side on Facebook.
all right, man.
All right, man. Good night. And,
Take it easy, everyone.
all right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. All right, guys. That was Ian Schwartz on a bunch of different subjects. That was awesome. I've been wanting to do something like that, especially with Ian, because he has a lot of awesome theories and thoughts about everything, and has had a lot of experiences himself. So just have someone like that come on the show and talk was awesome. And we did a little special, a little longer than normal special. Nothing wrong with that. I know you guys always want more. So sometimes you gotta provide. So one thing coming up, guys, I forgot to mention at the beginning, is that on Bigfoot Bob, we hit 1,000 subscribers, and I'm going to be doing a 1,000 subscriber giveaway here shortly. I have to put the video together and everything, but I'm working on it, and it should be out hopefully by the weekend, if not early next week. It is coming, though, and I will want everyone to participate and have a chance at winning the giveaway. Also, thanks to everyone who has subscribed to Bigfoot Bob and getting it to 1,000 subscribers, which it's not about the subscribers, but every little bit helps and helps me continue to be doing this type of stuff. And you guys know that. You guys know that I'm all about just in general, just the paranormal in general, Bigfoot in general. I just love doing it. I love learning about it. I love experiencing it. I love getting out there, boots on the ground, investigations. It's the best. It's what I want to do. It's just, it's like my calling, you know. It's what I need to do, what I need to be doing to be happy. I love adventuring as well. I think after doing the Appalachian Trail, it's hard to not go on epic adventures. And, you know, sometimes, I'm not going to say I risk my life, but there are some times where I do risky things that could cause bodily harm or injury, putting myself into risky places where Brittany is not happy with me sometimes when I go to some of these places. But it's okay. It's what I do. It's what I love. And I know you guys love it too. That's why we're all here in this little community. It's beautiful. Anyway, gonna wrap it up here. Let's see. Got some really cool guests coming up in the next coming weeks. I'm going to leave that as a surprise to you guys. I like announcing it the week of, getting everyone hyped up for the guest. So be on the lookout next Wednesday for another podcast. Also, I will have some live streams coming. I've got a sleep study coming up on the 19th, which is much needed. I've always kind of struggled with, excessive daytime sleepiness and not getting proper rest. So I'm finally going to figure out why that is and come back stronger than ever, I think. And, it's going to be good. So I appreciate you guys' support. Check out the new video on the YouTube. It's causing some debates. Definitely check that out. Let me know what you think. I'd like to know. And, thank you guys so much. Wolfpack, let's do it again real soon.